Hi guys, so welcome back to our tutorials. In today's tutorial, we are going to create this card. And as you can see, it has some beautiful animations whereby if you hover over this card, some of these options show up. There is the like, there is add to cart, and there is a view option, and the color changes. So how can we create these using HTML, CSS, and CSS? So let's get started. So the very first thing we might do is to link our CSS file to the document. So we are going to use link CSS, and then we make sure that the file name corresponds to the file name on the top. So the next thing we might want to do is, the font I'm using is called Inter. So you can head over to fonts.google.com and then look for Inter font, click on it. On the bottom, you'll see a button that says Get Font. Click Get Embed Code and then copy the link. So if you have other fonts that are already defined, you can use the delete option to delete all the other ones that you don't want. So the next thing we might want to do is to paste the style link of the font. And then the next thing, let's add some default CSS styles. So margin of 0, padding of 0, and a box sizing of border box. So these are just default CSS styles. So the next thing I want to do now is to grab the body. We can grab the body and give it a padding of 2 rem. And before we continue styling, let's make sure we can go live with the new. Let's go live with the new page. And let's get started creating this card. So I'm going to create a div with the class of card. And then inside this div, the next thing we create is, this top section. This top section, it has something called a mask in CSS. So by a mask is that you can mask out some parts of the UI and show them to the. So we are going to use CSS masks. A CSS mask is just similar to what a mask should do. It hides parts of the section. So for instance, if you can see this section, you can see there is a shape here. This shape is masked out from the background. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a div with a class of top. And then inside this div, it will have 2 elements. So the top image wrapper element and then the text. So we don't want to mask out this text. All right. So what we can do now is to create a div with a class of image wrapper. And then let's create an image inside. So if you want these exact images that I'm using, as always, I always say, go to my GitHub repository. So github.com/TechWithTwin/TikTok-projects, look for food card v1. All right, so this one is the food card v1. And then copy these images. So we have the burger. Now we want v2. So let's go back and look for food card v2. So we have the mask and we have the chips image. So copy those, and then if you're following along, and then if not, let's continue. So we are going to add the chips, and then you can add an alert like chips. And then after that, we are going to create a paragraph and say $30. So let's go to our finished version. This is what we have. We have our $30 here. So we are going to use flex to display this card in the middle. So you can say display flex and then justify content to the center, just like that. And then something else you might notice is, let's add the font family we just created. So we created a font family of Inter. And then as a fallback, we use sans serif. You can see the font has changed. So that's it for that section. Let's finish up on the title and the description. So we can create a title. So let's finish on the top section, then create a heading level 3 and then say solo snack fuck. And then let's add the description. I'm just going to copy this. And then after copying, then I just paste. All right. So this is what we currently have. So what is remaining is that you can see if I hover over the finished version, you have some icons. So these icons are font awesome icons. So to start to add a font awesome icon, you need a CDN link, which will give you the CSS file that will help you add the icons. So to do that, there is this popular library that is open source, cdnjs.com. That is a CDN that serves all these popular libraries. Like, you can use them. So you're just going to copy the link tag, go to the head tag of your HTML document and paste it there. The next thing we need to do is to go to Font Awesome website. So you can go to fontawesome.com. And then in Font Awesome, the very first icon you want is the wish list. So this one is the heart icon. So you just come here and search. So just come here and search for heart icons. So just look for an icon you want. We want this heart. Click on it. And then when the pop-up loads, copy this icon. So we are going to create a div with a class of actions. You can say .actions. And then let's create a div, because as you have seen in the finished version, so let me just make sure this is visible. There. So as you have seen on the finished version is that these icons are wrapped inside a container that has a background color of white and all that. So we are going to wrap them in a div, and then let's paste that in. So let's go ahead and look for the next icon, which is the shopping cart. So we can just say shopping cart. And then you can see shopping carts. I'm just going to take this one with a plus sign. And then copy as the previous one. Then let's create a new div. So we can create a div and paste it in there. The last one is the view icon. So this is an eye. So we can just go back to Font Awesome and create an eye. So look for an eye. So right, this is the eye. We can use this. So you just copy as I showed you. So you just click on the document to copy, and then we are done with Font Awesome. Then let's create a new div and place that icon inside. So we are done on the HTML. Let's move on to CSS. Take note of these actions, the classes. So the very first thing we want to do is that we want to start styling the card. So we can say .card, and then let's give it some fixed width. So we can say a width of 350 pixels. So that's a fixed width for the card. And then we want to display it flex and flex direction column to make sure we can add some gaps between the elements. So we can say display flex, and then just flex direction column, and then align items to the center, just like that. And then you can see this one is not aligned because this is text, so we can just do text align center. All right, you can see it like that. And then let's add a position of relative, because we want to place the actions icons here on this end, so they need to be displayed absolute to the parent. So we can now grab the actions and display flex as well to them. And then what we also want to do is that we want it to be here on the right. So the right we can do, let's start with 0. and then top of 0. And then we display it, we add a gap between these icons, 7 rem. So, and then the flex direction is column. All right, so the card we give it position relative. So this here we need to do position absolute. Position absolute. You can see where it goes. So it goes to the very, very end of this card. So we'll work around it to see how we can add this animation. So the next thing I want to work on is to mask this top section. So how can we mask these out? So I have these images I told you to download. One of the images is a mask image. The mask image is normally used as an SVG or a PNG, in that it will map out the background using this shape. So let me show you how you use it. So we have the image wrapper. All right. So let's grab the image wrapper. And which is the image wrapper? This is the image wrapper, is whatever contains this image. So what we want to do here in the image wrapper, we just add a mask. We just write mask image, and then you specify a URL of the path to your mask. So it has been masked. The next thing we need to do after masking, let's add some background color. Let's do white. Right, and also the body, we need to give the body some colors, some background colors. So the background color for the body, we are going to use hash F6 F2 E2. So you can see our mask has already been added. Then we need to style this mask. So to style this mask, what we do is that let's make sure the mask does not repeat itself. So we can say mask repeat, no repeat. And as I said, the mask is basically what you think about it. It is helping us to mask the background with the shape that we gave it. All right. It leaves a hollow part that you can now add new stuff. So then let's say the mask size is cover. Then you can see the mask now takes in a very nice shape. So the mask size is okay. And then what else do you need on the mask? Let's add some padding bottom. So the reason I'm adding a padding bottom is that in the finished version, you can see we have this text that is displayed up. So we need to add some paddings to provide space for adding this text. So finally, on the image wrapper, what we need to do now on the image wrapper is let's use we created the image wrapper inside the top section. So in order for us to lay this text on top, we need to lay it on top of the top div. So it is not the image wrapper. The image wrapper just holds the image. So we are going to focus on this and the top class. So you can just do .top position of relative. And then let's grab the top and then the direct child, which is a paragraph, which now corresponds to this paragraph. So if you go to the finished version, what you can do to this paragraph is now we can say this one has to be position absolute and then a bottom of 0. Let's do that. You can see it. And then the left, let's do left 50%. You can see it. And then let's transform this. We can say transform, translate. So the translate starts with the X and then goes to the Y. So translate X, we push it back 50% and then we push it down 50%. You can see where it lies. And then let's go back to the card and give it, or maybe we can focus on the top. Let's do a margin bottom of 1.5 rem. You can see it there. Then this paragraph, let's give it a background color. So you can say background color of hash FF 9924. You can see it there. And then after doing that, let's add some paddings. Then you can do 0.6. Next, let's add a border radius. You're going to do border radius of 2 rem. All right. So this looks nice. Let's increase its font size. So we can say font size of 1.2 rem. So to me, that looks nice. So let's go back to the top and give it a width of 100%. All right. And then after doing the width of 100%, let's go back to the image wrapper. So in the image wrapper, we can do I think we also need to add some paddings here. Okay. So I think this one, let's see how the final version looks like. The final version is okay. So let's go to the card and see what we can add. So in the card, we need to overflow. Let's first add the actions. So let's go and see. So they are still added here, the actions. So let's target the image inside the image wrapper. So we can just do dot image wrapper and then image. And then on the image, let's give it a width of 100%. So we can say width 100% and a height of 100% and object fit of contain. So an object fit of contain says that I want to be contained. Even if it stretches, it tries to fill. So it's like when let's assume you're adding something to a box. So even if you do a width of 100% and the height of 100%, and then the object fit, how is this object going to fit? You can add maybe cover. Cover will try to stretch out that thing to match that width. But if you do the contain keeps the aspect ratio, even if you give the width and the height. So the next thing we need to work on is on the card. Let's go back to the card. So on the card, let's add some gaps now. Let's do gap 0.5 rem. All right, I think that looks nice. Finally, let's target this paragraph. So it's card. We can capture the card. Then direct child paragraph, we can say font size 0.9 rem. And then a color. This is the color you're going to use for the text. And then let's give it a width. So we can give it a width of, so we can give it a width of 80. Let's do a max width. So max width 80%. Want to minimize it. So what is left is that you can see these are too close to the edges. So let's go back where we gave the actions some styles. So instead of having it at a right of 0, let's push the right to something like 5%, like that. And the top, let's push it to maybe 10%. Now you can see here it is. And then what else we need is that we need to increase the size of the icons. So we can grab the actions icon. So in the actions div, we can grab the icon. So you can say dot actions and then icon. And then let's give it but let it remain like the way it is. You can already style later on. So what we want is that whenever someone hovers on this card, we want to change the background color. So we can say dot card hover, and then we grab the top. We give it the, let's see. So we grab the image wrapper and try to give it a different color. So we can grab image wrapper. Then the background color will be, it's a greenish color. So it is hash 3F9065. So if we hover, you can see it showing. The next thing is that let's go to the image wrapper and give it a transition of 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Now if I hover, you can see not 2 seconds, 0.2 seconds. Now you can see if I hover, you can see it showing. The next thing, you saw that on the finished version, these ones were lying beneath a div with a background color of white. So we give it, we can call the actions. So we can say dot actions and then the direct child div. So we are targeting all these divs. So these divs, so actions and then direct child divs. And then after selecting that, let's add some padding of maybe 4.4 a background color of white. So and then a border radius of maybe 50%. We want it rounded. And then to make sure that it is still in the middle, we can display it flex. And then justify content to the center and align items to the center. Trying to make sure that it is in the middle. The next thing is that this one should not be shown as until we hover over that. So what we can do is that we can translate the actions themselves. So we can translate the actions. So let me show you. So we go back to where we were capturing the actions. And then in the actions, let's transform this and say translate X. We want to push it away like 150%. You can see where it moves. Let's do 160. All right, I think that looks cool. So they are pushing it away from the image wrapper. And the reason is that whenever you hover, you want to move it back. So we can also grab the dot card. And then whatever you hover over the card, you can grab the actions. And then on the actions, we can say transform, translate X 0. And then we go to the parent, which is actions, and give it a transition of 2 seconds as well. So let's see. So if I hover, you can see they are moving. No, it's not 2 seconds, 0.2 seconds. So now if I hover, you can see now we have some details that are popping up. So finally, what we need to do, I don't think there's anything left, or we need to hide this. So this one is located in the top. We can go to here, we selected the top and say overflow hidden. So that is not working. Let's try it on the card. It's gone. So if I hover, you can see it showing. To make sure that it's very aesthetic, we can add some opacity. So the actions, let's look for the actions. We need to do something on the actions. For some reason, I'm not finding the actions. I found it. Then we can say the opacity is 0. And then as soon as it shows up, opacity. That's very nice. So that's it, guys. That's how you can create such a beautiful card. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, follow, and share with your friends. Thank you.